Let's see who's here today. We're going to do a really nice restorative and yoga nidra session this morning. So if you're there, let me know. I'll just start off the comments. So yeah, today will be a very chilled out restorative session. We'll do just a few poses, a handful of poses to try and kind of move the spine in different, well, just open the spine in different directions, and then we will have a yoga nidra at the end. So things that you might need for this practice. So what I'm going to be using, and it's a lot, and we can work around. So I'm going to be using 4 blankets. These are IKEA blankets, of course. And so I've folded them. If you fold them up 4 times, they make a nice big rectangle like that. So if you start off with blankets that are folded like that, if you don't have 4 blankets, then 2 will suffice. And then you probably want to grab some pillows from your bed. And what you lack in blankets, you can make up in with pillows. I'm also going to be using a block. Again, if you don't have blankets, you can work around with a couple of blocks. If you don't have a block, a cushion from your couch will do. And I'm also going to be using a bolster. You can see these bolsters are quite big and fat and firm. So if you haven't got a bolster, then maybe 3 or 4 pillows. So it's kind of that shape, and the pillows are obviously going to be wider and flatter, but if you wrap something round the pillows, maybe at the top, in the middle and the bottom, then you can make a squishy bolster. And there's always a workaround for these things. So that's what I'm going to be using. So I've got 4 blankets, I've got a bolster, and I've got a block. I think that's what I'll use. So if you're here, drop me a comment so I can say hello. I can see some people have joined. If you do manage to do the comments, then it's really nice for me to see who's here. These little retreat sessions I'm going to do on Sunday morning on the Shanticentre training school page. I'll be doing, it's going to be a really nice spinal reset. So we're going to use restorative, very gentle restorative. This is going to be using blankets rather than bolsters all the way along the spine, and then myofascial release with the 2 myofascial release balls. So it's going to be a spinal reset. So that's on Sunday, so don't miss that. 8:30 in the morning again. And if you can't make it, you can always scroll back through and do it another time. And they'll also be uploaded onto the YouTube. And then finally, next Wednesday will be my last of these sessions, and it'll be at this time on this page where you are now. And it's going to be a super chakra session. So that will be all of the sessions that I do. Okay, so I'm going to begin, and I'll just go through what we might need. I'm going to use 4 blankets, but if you don't have 4 blankets, grab a couple of pillows from your bed and maybe 2 blankets if you've got them. I'm going to be using a bolster. You might want 3 or 4 pillows, maybe tied around so they're kind of more squishy. And I'm going to be using a block. You can also use a cushion from your sofa. So we're going to start in a side lying position. So I'm going to set things up. I'm going to have a block for my head. So again, you could use a cushion. I'm also going to put a blanket over that block because blocks are hard and I want a soft landing for my head. When I go into my side lying position, I'm going to have my hand over my head. Oh, Rachel's here. Hi, morning, my darling. So I'm going to put my hand over my head in the side lying position. So because my hand doesn't reach the floor, I like to then plop my hand on something. So I have a bolster, use sofa cushions, use what you've got. Use child or pet. I have used dogs in my restoratives before. If they're nice and asleep in the right place, it works. Then I'm going to take my 3 blankets. Here you could use your couple of pillows. I've got them folded 4 times, my IKEA blanket, so they go into big rectangles like that. I'm then going to concertina them in 3. So this makes a nice kind of thin chunk. And I'm going to take 1, 2, 3 of these concertina chunks. And that is going to prop up my side body so that I get a nice side bend. Here you could pillows. You could also use 2 blocks of the blanket over the top. I'm going to sit on my side, so I'm sitting on the floor on my side, and I'm going to just lay over this lovely pile of blankets so it kind of supports my lower ribs. My shoulder's free because this is high enough that my shoulder is not going to be jammed on the floor. My ear, I'm going to take my glasses off, my ear's going to land on my pillow, my block, my blanket, and I'll start with my hand on my thigh. And then I'll turn my palm up, take it all the way over. Now, if you didn't have anything there, you could fold it and just let it touch the floor. But I love to let it land on something. Now, you might want to wriggle forward or wriggle back to find what you need to be able to maintain this position with minimal effort. So I like to lean back a little bit on one side and lean forward a little bit on the other side, which is very telling about my wonky body. So we'll hold this for a few minutes. You could always have something in between your knees. You want to try and find that position that you can just soften into. Don't spend some time setting up, but then try and let go. Don't hold any position if there's any pain or too much stretch. So if it's too much with the arm up, just bring the arm down or bring it onto your pillow or wherever you want. If you like that opening on the whole of the side, that's great. And if you're feeling too much of a stretch in the side waist, then just come down a level, take one of the blankets away. And just sink into this position. Try and rest as much as you can, so that you can let go of the shoulders, let go of the legs, let go of the arm. And I've laid on my right side. Maybe you've laid on your left. It doesn't matter because we'll do both sides. But lying on my right side means that my left side is having some energy boost. I mean, I can breathe and I can feel the left ribs expanding. I can feel the left waist opening and expanding. And I'm trying to relax my right side into that support, the blanket, the pillow. And often our pelvis gets a little bit on the wonk. I don't know anyone, as a massage therapist, I get to touch a lot of pelvises, and I don't know anyone who's got balance in their pelvis. So this is really nice for stretching out one side at a time, just making some space. Really good place for us to start today. And just before we come out, I invite you, if you want to, if this feels nice to you, bend that top arm, put the hand behind your skull, maybe tuck the fingers under, the fingertips under your head, just so that the hand stays there. And if you want to, you could draw that elbow and the rib cage back slightly. And you're just creating more space between the ribs and the hip there. Leaning back just slightly. Taking a few breaths there as you roll back. Just a touch. And then roll back forward. Use this top hand, press it into the floor, and very gently come up. And just sit in front of that little mound you've got, with the back nice and straight. Take a breath. And then we'll do the other side. So we're going to sit on the other hip, on the other side, and then I'm going to drape myself over. So hips on the floor, then shoulder comes into that space between your lovely pile of blankets, Head comes onto the block, and the block's got a blanket on because it's more comfy, and we're going for ultimate comfort. And then I'm going to start with my hand on my hip where I could stay, or I could bring it, palm turned towards the top of my head, land it on something. And then you might need to angle yourself forward or backwards a little bit to find that space where you can just let gravity take you and hang here. And this is a different side with a different length of muscle tissue, different things going on different sides. So it might be that this is now too high for you compared to the other side. You might want to remove one of the blankets under your rib cage. And for me, like I said before, I have to lean back further one side just to be able to rest into this pose. Sometimes you might have to lean forward one side. Maybe it's too much to have the arm up if you've got shoulder problems. So find that place where hopefully you can relax, and then turn into your breath. Start to let go into the pattern of the breath, inhaling and exhaling. Feeling that openness on the side that's up towards the sky. Maybe you can feel the breath in the rib cage there. Maybe you can feel an opening in the waist there. You can always have something in between the knees if it's more comfortable. You could have a pillow between the knees and between the ankles. And the more you do these poses, the more you can practice them on your own, the more you find your ideal setup. So everyone has their own setup and their own ideal kind of use of props in these poses. So the first time you do these poses, maybe you don't get the best effect because you're using the props that I've suggested. But I encourage you to explore and pick one of the poses that you enjoy today. Practice it before bed. And you'll find your own way of practicing, your own ideal setup. Now before we come out of this, there's an option here just to add a little bit extra stretch. I take my fingertips behind my head, tuck in the fingertips, and just draw the elbow and ribs back a little bit, turning the sternum just slightly and the head just slightly on a diagonal upwards. And all I'm doing is drawing this rib cage and shoulder further away from that hip. Oh, this is such a tight side for me. It's interesting when you find all your imbalances. That's normal, by the way, to be completely imbalanced. Don't buy into this lie of total balance and perfection. You're great how you are. Body and mind ways. And then let's bring the hand down. Place the hand in front of your face on the floor and just gently press yourself up. So spending time in restorative, you don't want to then suddenly make sudden movements to come out of the poses. I'm going to sit in front of my pile of blankets as best I can, sitting up, taking a breath, just letting the spine settle. Okay, so we've made some space there in the lower back, in the waist area. We're now going to do a lovely pose called Mountain Brook pose. I'm going to take my concertina blankets and bring them back to their normal fold, how they were before, just so that I'm ready. Put my glasses back on now so I can see. I've got my pile of blankets. For this one, I'm going to be using 2 blankets and a bolster. So if you haven't got bolster, a couple of pillows, that's going to be under your knees, just to make this nice, gentle, kind of, you feel like you're in a mountain stream and you just got these kind of curves around you in this mountain brook pose. So I'm going to be using a blanket under my head, which I'll just roll. So I've got that in its long kind of fourfold. I'm going to roll the long edge just a touch, and I can readjust that later. That's going to be under my neck. And then under my chest, under my shoulder blades, I'm going to take my normal fold and just fold it twice. So now I've got a long rectangle, and I'm going to have a couple of those because my blankets, IKEA blankets, are quite thin. Don't want it too high. You don't want it to be a really intense back bend, but it's just an opening of the chest. So I'm going to sit down on my bottom, bolster under my knees, and this lovely little lift is going to go under my shoulder blades so that it's kind of my chest is lifting. The tops of my shoulders are going towards the floor, but they don't quite reach the floor. And then I grab this lovely sausage rolled blanket and I place it under my neck, and I can roll it up a little bit more to fill the space under my neck. I want my chin slightly up, so it is a bit of a back bend. My sternum is flat and kind of cascading down. Or you could always get blankets under each of the arms, but if they don't touch the floor, then you just take them out to the sides, and that's also fine. So I've got this lovely kind of mountain brook stream effect going on with my heels on the floor. So if your bolster's too big that your heels are not reaching the floor, you probably want blankets under your heels as well. I mean, it can get very extreme in terms of props, but use what you've got. Got something under my knees, then my pelvis is nice and heavy. And then I've got this gentle undulation hill under my chest. And that is going all the way up to the back of my head, which is heavy. My chin is slightly extended. So I do have a slight extension in my neck, but my neck is supported with this gentle roll. So I feel like I filled all the space. And I just stay here in the openness with complete support. So when you found your position, from underneath your shoulder blades, underneath your middle back, gentle undulation. And trying to relax and breathe, and just feel the center of the sternum wide open here, the collarbones open. Shoulders relaxing. Neck supported, back of the head heavy. Okay, I have to remember not to fall asleep in the poses. Remember that I'm actually running a class. So take a few more deep breaths. And hopefully it feels nice. I mean, don't take deep breaths if it doesn't feel good for you. Any kind of breath is good. And then to come out, what we'll do is we'll bend our knees and bring our feet onto the bolster. Then we can kick the bolster away. It's slightly more tricky if you've got pillows there, but it should be possible just to get that out of the way. Then what we can do is roll to one side. So I'm going to bring my hips over to the opposite side. I'm going to roll onto, and then I'll bring my hand over and roll. So I'm still kind of supported on that roll, and now I've got a bit of a lift underneath my rib cage. But from here I can place the hand on the floor and very gently again press myself up. And before we carry on, I'm going to just sit upright, maybe kneeling, maybe sitting cross-legged, maybe back against the wall, just so that your spine can be straight for a moment to take all of that in. Okay, so let's try a nice, we'll do a twist now. So we'll have the bolster and we'll have a blanket. So we can remove our blankets that were under our, I can't remember where they were now. I'm in restorative mode now. We'll move the blankets, just keep your space nice and tidy. Bring your bolster or your set of pillows block under, just to make that slightly more tilted, which will make it less intense. We'll do a twist first with the bolster in this position. You may want an extra blanket handy for the head or the ribs, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And you may want a blanket in between your knees. So I'll sit with the side of the hip towards the bolster, and I'll just rest the sole of my bottom foot in the shin of my top leg. So I'm just kind of, it's very simple position, and I'm going to twist. I'm not going to kind of yank myself around, but I'm going to place the hands either side of the bolster and just lengthen. So rather than yank into the twist, I'm going to lengthen my spine, and then I'm going to rest my chest on the bolster, and I'm going to turn my head to the same side as my legs, and then I'm going to let my legs relax. Now, if you find this very intense, you might want to come up even higher. So I've put a block underneath my bolster. You could put the block flat. You could also, if you have, if it's going to be more comfortable for you, you could have the blanket closer to you so it supports the ribs and the breast tissue is free and your head can rest. You see, it's not great for me because I need my head lifted. But you can experiment a little bit there as to where you put your blanket, if you have a blanket. And then the final thing to remember is just to relax your arms and shoulders. And see if you can relax the body. You don't have to be right up close to the bolster with your hips. And just a very gentle twist going through the whole body. And then seeing if you can completely relax. Try and let go of the holding with the arms and the shoulders. And then very gently, maybe a few more breaths before we gently come up. So when you're ready to come up, you can just bring your hands back a little bit so that you can really place some weight on your hands. Press yourself up and kind of maybe let your head linger and be heavy. And come up and again sit then in front of your bolster. You can use your bolster as a gentle support on the lower back. Take a breath. You might feel that spiraling of energy kind of straightening itself out now, unwinding. And we'll do the other side. So I'm going to sit with the side of the hip towards the bolster. I don't have to be right close to it. I've got some space between my hip and the bolster. My knees are my legs are folded, and the lower sole is my spine. I don't want to yank into the twist. It can be as gentle as you want it to be. I cannot twist very much, or maybe I twist quite naturally and the chest is going to be down, but it's just what feels good for me. But I lengthen first, just make some space and then let the bolster take you. If you want to have some padding under your belly, maybe the breast tissue is bigger, and then you can have your head down like that, or maybe you have the blanket under your head, cheek to the same side as the leg, so it's not super intense. Relaxing the arms, that's really tricky sometimes, to relax the arms and let them go. And then just letting yourself feel the support. So with restorative yoga, we try and support like from the floor up to your body. So often if there's a bit of aching, maybe think about how you can close the space that's underneath you. So just filling the space between the floor and the body so that the body can be in a shape but let go into the support of the shape. And we're really not looking for a stretch. We're looking to make about 65% effort, and that's really only getting into the pose. Do less. Permission to rest. Permission to feel that this is enough to constitute a yoga practice. That it's valid. It's not something that you can have because you did that workout yesterday. It's valid in its own right. It's introspective. It's valuable to you. It takes you inside, withdraws your senses, sets your nervous system.
after your last few breaths in this position. Bring the hands back so they're under your shoulders, so that pressing down, you can lift yourself up, let the head linger. Come up very slowly, and as you twist your body back to the centre, sitting with the bolster in the lower back nice and straight. Having a few breaths here, really feeling that kind of, what is it, the double spiraling effect that you may now feel. Don't worry if you don't, it might just be me. This kind of unwinding of both sides. So we started with that lovely side opening, then we did the heart opening, now we've done the twisting, and it's like allowing the spine to unwind in all these different ways. And we're going to finish the restorative part of the practice with a restorative kind of forward bend. We'll do child pose, but you have an option here because not everyone likes child's pose. It's quite intense on the knees and the ankles, but if you're taking child's pose, you can make it more comfortable. But let me just say, if you don't want to do child's pose, you can do a restorative forward bend. Just the legs kind of wide and floppy. You can have a chair to rest your head on, or you can use the bolster kind of at an angle so that you can take the buttocks back, maybe sit up on a blanket and bring the forehead chair, and you can have the hands down. So just to go through that one more time, sitting up on something, I like to use a diagonal pointed blanket so that my pubic bone can roll forward. My sitting bones are on the blanket, but my legs are relaxed. Bring the bolster up diagonally so that I can kind of lean forward. Top of the sacrum comes forward, and then I can fold over. If I have a chair handy, that's also nice. Hands can be on the floor, or hands can hold the bolster. If you're on the chair, it's really nice because you can fold your arms. So that's the option if child's pose is not for you. And if you want to do child's pose, I recommend having that block under the bolster, bring it up a little bit higher, and then if you get cramp in your feet, you can always have some little rolls underneath the feet, underneath the fronts of the ankles, so that your feet won't point so far. You can always have rolls in the backs of your knees so that your knees don't fold so far. So there's ways around it. And what we'll do is we'll bring the bolster right into the pelvis, knees nice and wide. And you can have it even further up if you change the block underneath. Rest your belly and chest over the bolster, and then turn your head to one side and rest. Side, and then we'll turn the head to the other side and rest. And again, you could always have this blanket over the belly, so there's more breast tissue in the way you might prefer to have that kind of more of a curve here in the upper back, just to take some of the pressure off the upper back area. So find out what suits you more. You can even be more upright. I think that's quite nice. Oh, yeah, I think I'm there. So I'll take that down. So once you've had a little explore of what might make this pose more relaxing for you, or maybe you've decided to do the wider leg pose with the blanket under your bottom and the bolster under your head, see if you can let go now into the support. And let go of any temptation for the arms to hold. Sometimes it's hard to find that position where the arms switch off. Just turn to the breath. And then turning the head gently to the opposite side. And resting once again. And then preparing to come out of the pose again, bring the hands back so they're underneath the shoulders, in front of the knees, pressing the hands into the floor, coming up, letting the head linger. And you can come up and sit on your heels here. If you've had enough of this position, you might want to come back onto your bottom, either cross-legged, or you can take your feet out. Just be upright for a moment. And then we'll get ready for our Yoga Nidra. So for Yoga Nidra and Shavasana, we're going to use our one blanket for under our head. Make us get the long side and just start to make a little sausage there. Place that at the head of your mat and you can adjust that when you get there. Bolster can be under your knees. And it's up to you what else you have. Maybe a blanket over you. Maybe a blanket over your eyes or an eye bag, and you'll make your way down into your Shavasana position. You might like, what I like sometimes, is something under each of the heels. So I've got my black bolster under my knees and I've got each of the heels lifted. And as I lower myself down, I'm going to bring my head onto this blanket and I've got this roll here. I'm just going to roll it up until it fills the space, because the neck, I mean, we hold a lot of tension in our neck and we don't want to overfill the space, but we just want that support. And once you've had that support, you've got this roll here. So once you've rolled it enough that you feel like you've got support, move your hands to the outsides of the rolls, unroll it slightly, but move it towards the top of your head, pull it up to the top of your head, and then kind of tuck under bit by bit pouch. And it's, you know, it might not tuck under completely, but it kind of gives your head this feeling of total support. And then I think I haven't got anything else. But if you had an eye bag here, you could pop it over your head. You could have eye bags in your hands just to let your arms relax. You could have your hands on your belly to soften the belly. Just spread the shoulder blades out, spread the sacrum out. And allow yourself to rest into this position. And what we're going to do is we're going to go on a little mini yoga nidra. A little guided meditation while we're here. Don't worry if you drop off to sleep. We've spent half an hour bringing the body to rest, and now we're just going to let the mind take over. So first of all, to feel your weight in the support of the earth, just feeling everything supported, the heels, the backs of the knees, the lovely heavy pelvis weighting into the earth, the back of the ribs, the back of the shoulders, the head cradled in this amazing little cocoon, the neck able to soften into the support, the back of the head nice and heavy and gently supported with a layer of blanket underneath. Arms heavy, legs heavy, so feeling that support and just really engaging with the support, feeling that the earth has got you, she's got your back, and she can take care of you for the next moments. And feel the in-breath light and free, so there's all the space on top of the body able to expand, and welcome the breath as the breath comes in through the nose or the mouth of the body, accepting and expanding and engaging. As a welcoming, as the breath fills the whole body, you can imagine that you're taking breath in all the way down the pelvic floor, maybe down the legs, and as you continue taking the breath in, you can feel it filling the body up, filling up the belly, the abdomen, the rib cage, and almost all the way to the crown of the head. And as you breathe out then, feel that you're melting into that support, leaning into that support a tiny bit more with every out breath, so that every in breath that comes in, you are able to welcome it just a fraction deeper and deeper into your inner self, filling yourself up with this in breath and surrendering and letting go more and more with the out breath. Into the support. Let yourself drop into the support. Take the help. And often it takes time. Stay with the practice. Keep trying to let yourself go into the support. Sometimes it takes minutes to drop. And it can take the fascia 5 minutes sometimes to unwind. And if you can just be present with the breath during this process, the welcoming of the in-breath, the letting go of the out-breath, and just letting yourself support this process fully, dedicated to deeply relaxing. And just going through the body from the toes up to the head. Seeing if we can let go and drop into that support a little bit more. Feeling the feet. Just allowing them to let go into the support. The shins and the calves. The knees and the thighs. Feeling the pelvis weighted, allowing it to let go any amount more that it could. The abdomen, the rib cage. Feel into the abdominal organs, just allowing them to rest and have space. And into the rib cage and the lungs and the heart, just allowing them to take space, to take support. The shoulders, the arms and the hands, just spend some moments allowing the shoulders to let go. It can be really hard to let go of tension in the shoulders. It's really ingrained in us posturally, emotionally, psychically, definitely physically. And the neck, our poor necks, always on our computers, always on our phones. 70% of the day, the neck's in flexion. Seeing if you can explore letting go into this little neck roll. The head is safe. The neck doesn't have to protect it anymore. The head can let go. The head's the heaviest part of the body. You can maybe feel your cranium bones as like a support for the melting brains, all that grey matter, fluidly resting on the bones of the skull. And take time to mentally relax any area that feels a little bit maybe like it needs some more help or it's a bit resistant. We're not trying to override that, we're trying to welcome and give support to those areas that maybe aren't ready to relax fully. Often there's some fear, justifiably so as well. We don't want to override that. Sometimes we can demonstrate or surrender a little bit more and just enable ourselves to realize that we don't need those holding patterns anymore. They were useful for a period of time. And now we can actually let those go. Allowing yourself to feel now that you are merging into your supports, into the earth, dissolving, drifting away from this hard shape. Allowing yourself to spread out. Maybe every time you exhale, you feel spreading out, taking more space, melting like a pool of butter in the sun. Like everything isn't holding on quite so tightly now. It can just float away from you. You'll bring it back later, but for now, maybe it can be released. In Italian, we say staccare, to unstick, to unplug. You might feel that you just don't know where your edges are now. And if that feels safe for you to explore, just enjoy the sense of merging with that which is around you. And if that's not a safe place for you to be, just feel free to wiggle fingers and remember that you are still there. You do still have edges. And knowing that as you unwind all your physical body, you can unwind some of your emotional heaviness too. Maybe you don't realize how heavy it is to hold on so tightly to who you are. But it takes a lot of energy being you, having your unique patterns, your personality, thinking the way you think and acting the way you act, and maintaining this sense of I, me. In some ways it's necessary, but sometimes it's nice to let that go to all the little pieces that make you you, these little pieces of your identity. This is a great time to explore letting them dissolve a little bit, being a bit more nothing, just for a moment, feeling that lightness of being the same as everything. And the same as nothing. All those opinions and fixed ideas just floating around you right now. There's no edges of your mind or your personality anymore. Just for a moment. Don't worry, they'll be back. And now let's start to very gradually gather ourselves back in, like you've had this kind of clean out. Your emotional body, your energy body, your physical body. With these practices, you've had a clean out, like a pipe cleaner has been inside your mind and your body and your joints. Now you can start to take all of those pieces back. Start to breathe in as if the action of breathing in is drawing yourself back into yourself, sticking yourself back together, gathering yourself back up. You can take those pieces of identity and your unique aspects of your personality and you can bring them back in. You can allow your bones to float back into place and your muscles to have their firm attachment to the bones. And you can start to feel the edges of your body and the separateness of your body and the support that you are taking from the earth and your props. You can feel now the difference and the division, even though it's just a feeling. And if you want to, you can start to feel the edges of your body more strongly by wiggling your fingers and wiggling your toes and maybe rolling the ankles and the wrists in and out. Maybe you can start some movement with your head. You might want to open out that cocoon a little bit and take a head roll side to side, feeling that lovely sausage of the blanket still nourishing the ropey muscles of the neck as you roll the head from side to side. And you could even take that blanket away now, moving your head to the floor and stretching the arms overhead, maybe stretching the legs, pointing and flexing the feet and having a yawn or a deep breath, maybe even pressing on the bolster, lifting your hips up if that feels good to you. And then bringing the hands down. You can bend your knees, bring the feet onto the bolster, maybe even hug your knees into your chest. And use your palms to stroke the legs up and down the sides, down the insides, over the belly. You can go clockwise around the belly, so lower right, upper left, lower left. You can do a figure 8 around the breasts, over the chest, into the neck, and down the opposite arms. And then take hold of your wrists and give a little pull. Make sure everything is attached firmly. And then move your hips to one side, roll onto one side. And at this point, if you wanted to open your eyes and just reorient yourself to the shapes and colours of the room, very gently pressing yourself back up. And I wish you a really happy day, very chilled out, hopefully. And yeah, I'll be back on Sunday for more spinal reset, restorative and myofascial release, and next Wednesday for my last session, which will be the super chakra session. Have a nice day, my loves. Thank you for joining, and if you missed, you can catch up. Ciao for now.